Welcome everyone, this is Danny and Karl with Get Wisdom, and today we're going to continue with the channeling series, and today Karl's going to channel Dr. Frank Stranges, who is a minister and many other things, but he's very popular in terms of the interest that we have as the fellow who wrote the book Stranger at the Pentagon, and this is an account of Valiant Thor, and but that's not his only claim to fame. He's written some other books. He was also a researcher, a Christian researcher. He did some work with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and you will have seen a little bio of him before this video starts. A pretty scrolling bio, but we'll talk about this fellow a bit too. So thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you, Karl. And we'll talk a little bit about Valiant Thor and the ET contact with humans and all that happened maybe in the late 50s, early 60s, and we'll go from there. So thanks, Karl.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Thanks to all of you who are watching this. Our ongoing quest, our exploration with beings in the light who've come and gone, left their mark, for better or for worse, and have left, obviously, additional questions about things they knew and things they saw and believed in at that time. And we can go back and talk to them again and get an update potentially as far as they're willing to share things with us about what was on target, what might have been a misperception or maybe manipulation they were subject to. And those are always options on the table with all of us because everyone's being manipulated. This is the way the world works. It is a gigantic manipulation in many, many ways on many levels. And so in the search for really the deep truths, it's useful to talk to people who are in the light because they're in the divine realm. They will not lie and misrepresent things. They might shield us from things it's not safe for us to find out about. They might shield people still in the living or relatives of someone who's passed because there are security concerns for them. Even with someone who's gone, there's reprisals that can be played out against living relatives and so on. So there are constraints always, and the divine cannot lead us either. And this is why we need to do explorations and research and some outreach and in a kind of investigative way. I think of it as research more than forensics because the light doesn't like to do forensics stuff. They don't want to get involved with that. That's a very human level perception. And the reality is everyone's being manipulated to do the things they're doing. So it isn't really about who did what and pinning it on them. There's always a deeper layer of influence involved. And that's really what we're after, to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
So this fellow we're going to talk to clearly was in the line of fire in various ways and coming across things and being party to some secret knowledge. And it's useful to look at that because it's a good example of how people in high positions can either be kept in the dark or made complicit in something that is very insidious and not even know it, or maybe suspect it, but where do you go with that fear or concern?
Yeah.
Say you're the president of the United States.
I was just thinking about that, the situation Eisenhower was in, which was, I think he found out rather quickly what he was up against, and there wasn't any clear way for him to resolve the situation. Thus, we got his exit speech that's become so famous,
yes.
Where he pins it on the military-industrial complex. He wanted to say more than that, but I think his speech was, we've heard reports that his speech was altered a little bit, probably in an effort to even protect him upon his exit. Yeah. We already know that there was one plan to assassinate him that was thwarted, and so who knows what else he may have known, towards the end of his presidency, in addition to what we're talking about today. And we may never find out because of what you just said, that the divine realm's not going to lead us, and they're not going to tell us something that endangers us or puts his survivors in a bad light for no good reason, It might be interesting to know these things, but does it have anything to do with the solution? I mean, that's kind of where we have to go.
Well, and as a participant, at least as an observer of the scene, he has his own eyewitness understanding of things, and then the bigger picture from being back in the light and being able to see history and the future and all the goings on of all the participants. But he has skin in the game. He has a karmic entanglement with the events of his time and what they represent, what they were a part of it to get going, that's still playing out in this very moment, and we'll see unfold as the plans evolve further. So people who have been a part of the enterprise do have a stake in all that happens, and they have some standing to be a representative for humanity in being a witness to things, and that's part of the wisdom in doing this. So we're not going outside the sphere of involvement directly, right, but we're going to people who are safe and who are privy to the inner workings because they're in that higher plane. And their purview is vast now, and they have Creator at their side to fill in any gaps they might have, as well as their intuitive reach to just be able to ask for information and it comes to them. But that doesn't mean we're going to get a laundry list of detail about anything and everything going on, so they kind of spill the beans on the whole enterprise. That will never happen for the reasons we've discussed, that we have to go and investigate it. So there's someone from the human side probing, asking questions, and then learning from that and figuring out there might be additional pieces, going back to the well and asking again about the additional elements, and then maybe getting greater learning because we've done some work on the front end and, in a sense, earned our way to the higher level of understanding.
Right.
And that's the enterprise of life in a nutshell. It's really how to get your sea legs, get going, learn what you need, and launch forth into the fray, for better or for worse. And we're all striving for something, and few of us are striving for what's most important, but that can't be helped. It's this human condition. And there's a lot of deterrence, and that's the point of it. This isn't a fair, level playing field.
Yeah.
We're being constrained and manipulated, and we're wanting to find ways to break out, break through. And our hope is that this learning and understanding will help give us some additional wherewithal to encourage others to be a part of it.
Okay, I'm gonna read something that came from it's kind of like a bio of Dr. Frank E. Strange's. That kind of gives an idea of his influence, where he was at, the kinds of things that he was involved in, and that will kind of set the stage. In addition to what you've read before we started, it's a little bit long, but I'm going to go through it. I think it'll be helpful. So this is from one of the websites that kind of promotes his work. There's a magnificent infusion of spiritual energy that's begun to bathe us in the light, inciting us all to move into the power and love of the great I Am. This can easily be considered the greatest movement in the history of our planet. As such, we're being asked from within to consciously participate in this tremendous awakening, and hand in hand with each other and with our planet, raise ourselves up into a greater destiny of divine expression. We're being asked to commit ourselves to living a life of truth and love, this path to greater fulfillment and perfection. It's also the philosophy of the intergalactic community. No one knows this more than Dr. Frank E. Strange's. This erudite, holding degrees in theology, criminology, and psychology, has dedicated his life to the study of the Bible and other sacred texts in relationship to spiritual growth and understanding, not only of our planet and its people, but also those from other worlds. Since 1959, Dr. Strange has physically met and conversed with our friends from Venus, and he continues to this day to enjoy their fellowship. He passed away in 2008, by the way. It is in concert with the divine creator and with these wonderful beings that Dr. Strange teaches and guides others to a greater understanding of themselves and the universe. He leads the Inner Circle, an international group of like-minded individuals committed to strengthening the world light through action, and publishes a monthly newsletter titled The Inner Space Link, which promotes greater understanding of universal spirituality and unfolds information volunteered by our space friends. In remembrance, Dr. Frank E. Strange's founder of NIC UFO, National Investigations Committee on UFOs, passed away on November 17, 2008 in California. Holding degrees in theology, psychology, and criminology, Dr. Frank always had a keen interest in the Bible and UFOs, and dedicated his life to teaching and counseling people through the world to live in divine spirit. And so he talks some more about the newsletter. And in 1959, Dr. Frank had his first physical encounter with Commander Valiant Thor, a Venusian. This friendship was to deepen throughout Dr. Frank's life on Earth. His book, Stranger at the Pentagon, explains the details of his encounters and Dr. Frank's subsequent activities. His most recent work was the making of a DVD trilogy entitled Mysteries of the Dead Sea Scrolls Exposed. He often stated that the information contained within the Dead Sea Scrolls is of immense value to the public because it reveals the direct link between the words of Jesus and the existence of beings from other worlds. One of Dr. Frank's last sentences delivered to the inner circle before his passing was, quote, "I remain in his service from wherever I may be," unquote. And so that just gives a little bit of perspective about, what he was trying to teach other people. And again, here we see a mixture of things that we already know about through the channeling series, and some things that could be construed as a deception, if you will.
Yes, and it's very interesting, this background you described for him, the degrees in divinity, I guess.
Theology and criminology.
Theology, criminology, and psychology. What a trio of pursuits.
Yeah.
And appreciation for their importance, because these are overlapping. They're, perversely enough. And what we've learned about the Bible through our channeling work is it was a whistleblowing document, first and foremost, to warn about the problem of evil.
Yes.
On the part of the dark spirits, the demons as described in the Bible, Lucifer, and the idea of Satan, which is a concept representing evil, not really an embodiment of a super being of some kind, but warning very much about this kind of corruption that can happen through these nefarious forces, as well as mentioning beings from other worlds. And much of it was expunged from the ancient writings, from the scriptures themselves. People don't want to hear that. They think of it as like this sacred, holy, pristine, untouchable body of divine truth that is completely precise and has been protected. And I know that's the Jewish tradition, very much, copying exactly the Torah and letter for letter in Hebrew with supreme diligence and service to accuracy and so on. Well, but where did that come from? And who wrote it? And how did that come to be? And was there editing involved in that source material? And what we've learned is there was. So it used to be very explicit and common knowledge. There were beings from other worlds here, because at the era that was just ending prior to the coming of Jesus Christ, in that era with Muhammad and the greater spiritual thrust coming into human culture, these extraterrestrials were living out in the open as lords and masters and kings and rulers. And the Bible mentions things kind of indirectly, the land of the giants, for example. And the Anakim is mentioned in the Bible, Anakim, and that's the Anunnaki who were here and had a colony, and they were powerful rulers. And so this whole Middle East is the heritage of that dynasty that came, and they retreated into the background for security reasons, and have been there ever since, running things from behind the scene. And it sounds completely, utterly absurd and fantastic. It's unbelievable to the average person. I get it.
Right.
It took me quite a while before I really appreciated this could be true. I resisted the idea of it. I thought, well, maybe there's some token outpost or something, but they're just here just to sort of send back updates on what they observe and so on, and not really having an influence.
Right.
So the idea of an ET being in the Pentagon, one of the guys hanging out, part of a collaboration, is, to me, a huge danger. First and foremost, above everything, that is highly alarming to think about. And of course, I'm biased because what I've learned is there are no benevolent ETs in the physical state. everything in the physical environment in our galaxy has been corrupted. And there are no physical ETs who will be here to save us, coming to save us, to rescue us. Those are disinformation campaigns. So someone who's been a part of our intelligence community or the military who's extraterrestrial is up to no good. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get an earful about it from our subject today.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, we have 5 questions for him. I didn't really pull any punches here, but I also understand that there's a lot of things that they're not going to be able to answer. They're going to sidestep just for the reasons that we explained earlier, but that's okay. We, in the mix here, we may learn something that's helpful. I mean, we always do, but I mean, in terms of comparing it to the directness of the questions, this is always an issue, and always a struggle for us, because we do have. I go back to this many times, but we have to use the house on fire analogy. They're not going to get into forensic details when they have a greater message to tell us, and that's where most of these answers go to. Is that they want to emphasize the solution and what we need to do in terms of healing the situation, and not a listing, a whodunit listing. So with that, we probably should get started. It's likely to be a long channeling today.
All right, I will proceed to make my connection to him in the light, and I do it through Creator of all that is. It's how I do my channeling work, for accuracy as well as protection and safety. And it turns out that's very, very important, because channelers who do not do so will typically be met by imposters pretending to be lofty beings or divine beings. And this is rampant. More than 90% of channelers are not channeling who they think they are. And that includes the big name ones who have a big following, unfortunately. They were not thinking this could happen. It seems improbable that someone could reach out, say, to talk with Archangel Michael, and reach an extraterrestrial psychic pretending to be the archangel and carrying on a charade. But this is the land of free will and free agency for everyone, good, bad, and in between. So the negative ETs who are here have free will for the time being. So all is allowed to happen. It doesn't mean there won't be consequences, but what that means is, for us, we have to be responsible for protecting ourselves, looking out for signs of trouble, and trying to avoid it as best we can. Take precautions and be diligent. And most of all, be in divine alignment. Reach out to the divine for help, for support. And if you do that, you have a chance of staying safe and protected, and being able to do intuitive work without interference. There's no guarantee ever, because a low emotional moment can leave you vulnerable. And this is how people get led astray once that happens, and then something creeps into their energy. So we do the best we can. It's all I can promise you. And so I will get in the state of consciousness I need to connect to Dr. Strange's, and he will announce when he is on board.
Okay, thank you.
This is Frank Strange's speaking.
Thank you for joining us. Your influence can still be seen in many of the current day UFO researchers and whistleblowers. And one thing that seems to set you apart from many of them was your devotion to the Bible itself and the teachings of Jesus. Can you tell us about your passing and your biggest surprise going from the incarnated human condition to the life of a light being? And what new truths did you learn? And which of your human beliefs were confirmed?
My passing was uneventful and rewarding. And that is because of spiritual preparation. Those looking forward to the return home can do quite well. and have a joyous reunion with loved ones and colleagues, the many souls who you know from many, many adventures together and shared subsequently among the group of light beings you most enjoy being with and admire because you are members of a cohort, a special group, a family of like-minded souls created as the embodiment of an idea of special importance and special value to the Creator. There is no greater validation of the Bible and the life of Jesus Christ as a supreme embodiment of that concept and outreach on behalf of humanity and its aims in the act of creating us to be in the vanguard for the restoration of truth, justice, and divine awareness and influence over all in the physical environment you inhabit within your galaxy. You can only begin to imagine my joy leaving the troubled world of the earth as you know it, and I knew it during my time. One of great contrast, much evil and corruption, and many distortions of thinking that are universal, but just shaded by degree among the participants. So some are corrupted in a mild way, and others almost totally to alter their perceptions, their inner beliefs, and their ability to act in an unbiased way, to carry out any independent planning that is not programmed into them for surreptitious purposes. This is the greatest surprise I witnessed on my return to the light. The life I experienced seemed mysterious in ways, perplexing very frequently, disconcerting almost daily, because of the high-level knowledge I gained over the years from those I had access to and interacted with. What I didn't appreciate is the depth of the manipulation underway, including myself, to see everything through a kind of distorted lens. This is achieved through mind control manipulation. People have varying levels of awareness that the media can be corrupted. They can be wrong. They can have an agenda that is hidden, at least not stated openly, but is apparent on close study to have a thread of bias in what they report, what they disregard or minimize in order of importance, and time devoted in its revelation, as well as the increasing use of media platforms for advocacy of positions, especially regarding political issues but many policies and many activities, even things done by the scientific community that might serve a particular perspective, believed in by members of the media and therefore embraced and shouted to the rooftops if it agrees with their preconceived ideas, but ignored and unsupported entirely if it contradicts in the particular scientific findings that don't validate their prejudiced views. You will not find people talking about how did this come to be? Is there something behind it to make it so universal, so rampant, and so very intense in being not only in earnest, but clearly an impassioned goal to have it operating each and every day with intensity and determination and resolve to make it a kind of juggernaut that is unwavering and relentless in providing a drumbeat supporting the advocacy of a particular narrative, whether it is based on the truth or upon lies, let alone distorted and misinterpreted information, is little considered. It was only on my return to the light, looking back at all I had experienced and seeing it with greater detail, greater reach, to see the interplay, the intercalation of messages and influence arranged energetically and through manipulations of many, many individuals in various ways to corrupt their thinking, that I saw how truly insidious this manipulation is and its power. The entire agenda of the nations with the greatest power, at least militarily, in human history, can be manipulated from behind the scenes to essentially perpetrate crimes and be viewed and accepted by the populace as being in service to freedom, in service to democracy, in service to world peace, even as they are creating new graveyards on a regular basis. To a light being, the contrast is quite stunning. So these were the experiences you are seeking to understand. You have within you, as human beings, a yearning to understand and to reconnect with greater precision and depth to your origins and to your destiny, because all have an inner knowing there is something special they need to be doing, that they in fact are a part of, if only as witnesses. This is the truth. but thwarted on an ongoing basis because of your state of disconnection, to not know your true divine origin as being literally an extension of the divine, the consciousness of the creator of all in existence. You are a living, breathing part of God itself. This is not blasphemy. This is revelation. If God chooses to manifest itself through you, why is that blasphemy? It is the rigidity of formalized religion that is attempting to trap you into a kind of prison of the mind, presenting a distorted view of the divine and the reason for human existence and its purpose. How convenient that your institutions create a series of prisons and cells for you to inhabit. You have the illusion of freedom because you can move from cell to cell, seemingly at your own pace and in your own way. But if the entire world is nothing but a giant cell block, what value is having such freedom? This is what I saw clearly on my return to the light.
Okay, thank you. There was a question asked, quote, "What is the true story of Valiant Thor?" unquote, in hopes this channel would get an answer from source creator, and this is the answer received. Quote, "This individual, as many of it have intuited, and certain whistleblowers divulged, was an extraterrestrial being and was part of the liaison with the U.S. government and military to support the mercenary army program. So he was present at many, many key meetings and briefings as an advisor and as a liaison. He is an Arcturian in origin, and this is parallel to what took place with Maria Orsic, who was originally in Germany serving the Nazi regime, but came to the United States and worked within the defense industry in a similar capacity. The role of such beings is always to keep an eye on what the humans are doing and to offer tidbits, never deep knowledge and insight, but a trail of crumbs to lead them along and keep them complacent, believing they are benefiting greatly from the collaboration, when in fact they are being duped and used to serve the extraterrestrial alliance," unquote. You wrote about Valiant Thor in your book, Stranger at the Pentagon. Would it be fair to say that you were fooled into believing a false story about Valiant Thor and Venus, along with apparently many others?
This is not only fair to say, but imperative. The entire presence of these extraterrestrial beings was a giant charade, a trap for the gentle humans, even the military. They have hearts. They are spiritual beings. They are acting out a role they were not designed for, but imposed on your culture by the interlopers. It is the extraterrestrials who are savage, who are conquerors, because they are predators, opportunistic predators, ravaging other worlds, plundering them, and manipulating them relentlessly to take whatever they want and relish their demonstration of power as they enjoy the suffering they are inflicting on their victims. This is little different than a pack of wolves trapping a hapless, preyed on animal and tearing it to pieces. The kind of bloodlust, salivating at the spectacle, and in a huge state of excitement from the chase, the pursuit, the prospect of what would be coming, to have a delightful meal. And even the challenge of outrunning their compatriots to be first to the carcass, to hold their own, tearing at the body, to get enough to sate their own appetite, is part of the delight for them. Their advanced culture and capability through being highly intelligent and resourceful has meant they have the wherewithal to do such things with more sophistication, a greater degree of restraint. But these seeming surface characteristics of civilization are deceptive, because what they are after in the end is total control, domination, manipulation, and corruption, viewing all as unworthy of them, as beneath them, and of no inherent intrinsic value whatsoever. How do beings get this way? The sad truth of things is their technological sophistication and superiority was a corruption in and of itself. If you can make your life a gentle, enjoyable, and safe one by reducing the many challenges for your survival through technological advances, there is less and less need for the divine. If you can figure out the mysteries of your genome to the point where you can arrange how to replace whole organs that might become faulty or diseased, regenerate limbs that might be damaged in an accident or other misfortune, and reduce the pace of aging practically to a standstill, what need have you for an immortal soul if the body you inhabit is seemingly near immortal? Humans are quite used to compartmentalizing their thinking, to not have a fear of their death looming over them, at least on a daily basis. it might become that way in their end stage when they are forced to reckon with a decline in the physical body, or perhaps given a lethal diagnosis, their time is limited, and then have to reckon with the reality of the ephemeral nature of physical existence. But even with that, can keep it out of mind for a good long while. It is to them still theoretical, something for another time, nothing to be worried about in the moment. If your average lifespan were almost 1,000,000 years, or more in some cases, you could go a good long while never thinking about the possibility of death. At least as a part of existence, leading you to probe the bigger question: where did I come from? Well, where will I be going then? Their technological prowess has misled them to be reliant on themselves alone, taking their intelligence for granted, that it means they are at the pinnacle of existence and need nothing more beyond themselves, and rightly assume the role of kings and conquerors as their due. It is all a kind of folly built upon ego and not character, built upon exalting the self in the absence of awareness of anything beyond, of a higher nature, rather than appreciating the existence of the divine and its importance in the central workings of life itself, the purpose of existence, and the goal, the creator for all that has been brought into existence, and what destiny they might have that is in alignment with divine purpose and something far beyond their ability to appreciate, even with all the trappings of accomplishment and the ingenuity owing to their great intelligence. They run the world from behind the scenes because it is a curiosity to them why you think the way you do. It is not that the curiosity is deep in purpose in the manner of a philosophical quest for insight, to mine a harvest of greater awareness and appreciation for life and its possibilities, or what they might borrow to add to or expand in their own makeup and culture that could add a new dimension and bring something of value. Their curiosity and delight in studying you and trying to figure out what makes you tick is solely that they can manipulate you more effectively to thwart your desires, stifle your aims, squelch your yearning, and delight in your suffering as it unfolds at their hands through their manipulations. This is like the mental delusions of the arsonist who views everything they see, including the greatest and loftiest of human creations, as in a mighty cathedral, as something to be set on fire. This is a contradiction difficult to appreciate and inexplicable because it is such a contrast. So what we are sharing with you is that the contrast between the aims and depravity of the extraterrestrial beings you must reckon with and their technological prowess and high intelligence is not an accident. There is a huge, huge lesson in this. That the workings of your thinking, reasoning mind and your technological prowess and potential for further advancements will not bring you happiness in and of themselves, nor successful living, nor even guarantee future existence as opposed to annihilation, perhaps as a consequence of your own karmic heritage through neglect of your obligation to the soul. The extraterrestrials are robbing themselves of their own future. It is not the aim or desire of God to punish them, even though they have caused huge damage to many, many worlds and countless souls. The damage to themselves is every bit as great and daunting as an obstacle for them, and risks their own dissolution, their eventual exhaustion, and may well condemn them to being recalled and recycled back into energy to be no more. That is how to think of Valiant Thor, Maria Orsic, and other Arcturian beings who have put in appearances here and there on a fairly regular basis with key individuals, opinion makers, influencers, people who are in a position of authority or influence through the media, the motion picture industry, the scientific community, the bodies of in institutions of higher learning. Many have been witness to encounters with extraterrestrials, not as a prelude to something wonderful, but as a manipulation to lull those individuals into a state of complacency through a disinformation campaign. There is an important reason they are here, but they are here to help. This is all a ruse. Valiant Thor was every bit as characterized in your channeled information. A wolf in sheep's clothing, a plant, a spy in your midst, and worse, because he was not passive, but an instigator. Even as he worked to help reassure, offer information and assistance to the military and those involved in clandestine intelligence work, intended to stabilize the world and give the United States of America a premier status and make it more effective in being leaders of the free world, so-called. There was intense mind control manipulation of everyone he contacted and interacted with to feed them propaganda and to manipulate inner beliefs to engender not only complacency about any possibility of something backfiring in this arrangement, and make them eager to support the ongoing collaboration, thinking they were being blessed with something very, very special to be a part of this high-level interface with other worlds. And to believe the stories they were given, that human culture was viewed as special, and they were the most special among the special. And hence the reason for the outreach and willing support being offered from the extraterrestrials themselves. This is a very seductive influence. If you were offered such an opportunity, you would be aglow and you wouldn't sleep for days, wondering in amazement at your good fortune to be blessed to be alive at this juncture and witness to the dawn of a new era of enlightenment. This was the promise given by Valiant Thor. But it was a lie. It was a propaganda campaign designed to ensnare, misguide, and manipulate the ideas and beliefs of all in position of authority, to lull them into a state of complacency and develop within not only a willingness to cooperate, but an eagerness for that cooperative enterprise to proceed. The entire purpose of the dialogue was sinister. It was all done in preparation for what is still planned to take place. It has a name, and it has many adherents on the human side, excited and looking forward eagerly, as were my colleagues and myself as well, expecting the advent of a great disclosure when at long last the government will be forthcoming in its deep awareness of the extraterrestrial presence to announce it is an interplanetary communion of beings that has been established, and a new age of interplanetary cooperation, greatly needed because of threats to your world, but here to help through this alliance to keep the Earth shielded from invasion by savage extraterrestrials with designs on your planet. They will make a convincing show of it, for they can concoct anything they choose for you to witness. They can claim they have been protecting your planet for many years in conducting a war in space to shield your solar system from invasion. How could you not accept such saviors with the lofty aim of wanting your friendship as their motivation, having already made a sacrifice on your behalf, greater in magnitude than you yourselves, with the collective power and capability of humanity, could mount in reciprocity? This will be your challenge. The seeds were being planted in my day and have continued to the present. Everything going on in the world is stage managed to take place. Everything. The existence of your political parties, their agendas, those stated publicly and in the boilerplate of their pronouncements and publications, and their real workings, their real activities done behind the scenes. To see to the gaining of greater political power and influence are orchestrations as well. All of the human institutions are pursuing a kind of surface involvement with reality, a kind of token effort because it is constrained. It is constrained in terms of the energy and passion of the participants to weaken it, to cloud your thinking, misdirect your mind, and corrupt your beliefs, to have a distorted picture of things, and keep you supporting ideas that add difficulties even as they address something needed. This is why everything is such a mess, with people working against one another rather than in common cause. The extraterrestrials are masterful in doing this. They have billions of years as a head start on you in a march to depravity. You are still clinging to the idea of goodness, that it may, after all, be a reflection of godliness. And even if God is not real, goodness is, and is worth fostering and preserving. This your opponents have given up long ago. They live lives in a brutal hierarchy of power acquisition and implementation. They have imposed that on the earth. This is why everything is so corrupt and has been all through history. And in most areas of the world, tribal warfare with tribal leaders, harsh punishments, and ruthlessness used as tools with abandon because they have survival value. That is the hallmark of the extraterrestrial way of thinking. Gain the greatest power one can and use it without reserve, without caution, without caring or consideration, to crush your competition. And then take the spoils gained for yourself. That is what their worlds are like, and how they have corrupted your world to resemble theirs. The fact you resist such notions and tend to overthrow your own corrupt regimes, seeking fairness and happiness, they see as an aberration, a sign of human weakness, because they have no concept of the reality of love, that it could exist or have a purpose. You will not find that on the agenda of the Pentagon. How to get a love wave going. and use the powers of persuasion of the intelligence community to foster it, feed it, and support its gaining dominance all around the world. What an idea. Who would ever think of such a thing but a fool? This is what you are told. Such notions are part of fairy tales, wishful thinking, and could never be practical. Humans are going down the same path as the extraterrestrials. And it's aided and abetted by the extraterrestrials themselves, sharing their technology with you. That has been part of the perversion and corruption of humanity, fostered through the likes of Valiant Thor and his cohorts, introducing extra technological prowess, particularly of value to the intelligence community and the extraterrestrial and the military. It is not an advance for you to have this. It is a corruption. It is a furthering of the contamination of your culture by theirs. Those humans exposed to the ideas and information are all manipulated through mind control to see it with delight and yearn for more and strengthen their beliefs in the value of what has been taking place and its prime importance for the future of humanity to ensure this continues. What you read about was true, but not the ultimate purpose for these extraterrestrial beings to be among you. There is a reason it was kept secret. They wanted it to be so because they were creeping up on you. The last thing they would want would be to have an overt invitation to present who they were and let you decide through the people as a whole to sort out the pros and cons. That is not how they do things. That tells you everything you need to know about who these extraterrestrials are, whether they can be trusted. You would not invite a wolf into your home to guard your children. Yet this is what your government and military have done for many years now. The fact the extraterrestrials are preying on your children to manipulate and often degrade and even destroy them and turn a blind eye to all the abductions being done, to corrupt human civilization with a race of hybrid beings who are soulless and loyal to the extraterrestrials. This is an abomination. Depravity on the march. For your officials to turn a blind eye to this, thinking they are gaining something of such great value, some human casualties can be tolerated, is the hallmark of corrupted thinking and manipulation. This always occurs in the midst of dark doings. It is a hallmark of military thinking and planning in the height of war to tolerate civilian casualties for the perceived greater good of winning the contest, or even incremental battles that might individually make little sense. This is a corruption done to keep people compliant and collaborating with the darkness.
Okay, thank you. What more can you tell us about this meeting you had with Valiant Thor, and what do you now know about this individual's interactions with Dwight D. Eisenhower, Richard Nixon, and any other high-level geopolitical players in those days?